Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Tech Enabled Agent. My name is Mike Russo and this is Dylan Silbernagel. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about the Mojo Dialer.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, with part of the purpose of these videos is for us to help our agents find new business, find more clients to work with. Mojo Dialer is a great tool to help with that, to work on your
Absolutely.
cold calling, to help get those numbers out faster. And Mike, I know that you're using the platform, so I just wanted to take the time to interview you today, just ask you some questions. Hopefully, you can shed a little bit more light on it. So why don't you first start? What is Mojo Dialer?
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know what it is, Mojo Dialer is a cold calling platform. Essentially allows you to cold call people without having to physically dial every single number, which can be extremely exhausting. So you plug in essentially a database of numbers, and you're able to call them automatically when they pick up. It connects you, and when they hang up, it starts calling the next person pretty much seamlessly. And you can do it in from one dialer to all the way up to a max of 3 dialers.
Nice. And so when you say 3 dialers, that means it's dialing out 3 numbers at a time?
Yeah, that's right. So we would be calling 3 numbers at a time, and whoever picks up first kind of gets connected to you.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. And so, to what do you need to kind of get this going? Because it sounds like it's literally just the platform that's then dialing out the numbers, right?
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. So this is just the main platform that you use to actually physically cold call the people.
Hmm.
In order to kind of get that going, you need a couple things. First of all, you'll need numbers to call.
Yeah.
And if you're a Canadian agent, the best place to buy numbers is from a program called Telelistings. Essentially, they just sell you the phone book. And when you pay for a subscription, you get access to the phone book and you can export some of the numbers, right? So that's number one. Once you're able to export those numbers, you can plug them into Mojo and you can start making your calls. Number two, which I would probably say is really important as well, is actually having access to do not call list. Now, depending on what brokerage you're with, I know with KW, we have access to the 905 because that's the region as to which our brokerage operates out of. So we actually pay into the 905 do not call list. Therefore, our agents are able to get that access. So you take that code and you give it to Telelistings, and they scrub that list and they remove everybody that's off that list. That way, you know for sure you're not calling someone that you're not supposed to be calling, right? You can easily purchase that list as well. It can be expensive, so definitely check the brokerage that you're with to see if they already have a subscription to it. And then from that point on, you're pretty much up and going. Now, a little hack or tip that some people might want is when you set up your Mojo account, it does use your personal number. So if you're cold calling random people, chances are they're going to call you back. So what I recommend is always buying a second number, and you can buy a second number using a program called Twilio,
Hmm.
where you can actually buy a phone number, set it up as your caller ID, and that way, if someone calls it back, it can just be a dead number. It doesn't have you don't have to answer it, right? And the reason, I mean, it sounds crazy. Like, why wouldn't you want people to call you back? Well, when you're cold calling, you're calling out a whole bunch of, maybe let's call it 100 people a day. Um, that can be quite annoying in the evening times, getting 80 calls back.
Yeah,
So it's very
absolutely.
tough to deal with, right? So I would definitely recommend setting up a fake number. That way any calls can go to that number just in case.
Perfect. And so, do you disconnect that number in the evenings, or like how does it work if you actually want to receive the calls versus not receive the calls in real time?
Yeah, so if you actually want to receive the calls, I would say just switch it so you can actually pick your caller ID. Just pick your physical phone number versus when you don't want to receive the calls, you set up the Twilio number. And the Twilio number, you have to pay if somebody calls it, and you can turn that feature on and off. So if you turn it off, when you call that number, it just says, this line cannot be reached, pretty much. It just goes right dead. The way that I did it was I just purchased a Twilio number. I have it. It cost me $1 to buy it,
Hmm.
and if someone calls it, it just goes nowhere. It's just a dead number. You can't even text it. Can't do anything with it.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about that
Hmm.
part before. And
Yeah, I
and
know
what would
it's
stop you
weird.
from having it go to like a? Could you just set up to just go to a voicemail?
You can set up to through Twilio. You can set up to go to voicemail. Now that will be a more it'll be a higher subscription fee. So
Hmm.
again, it just depends on your budget. But you could pay more monthly and have it so that you actually can physically answer the calls, or they'll go a voicemail, or essentially pay the $1, get the number, and it goes nowhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And so I'm assuming that one of the reasons why you're not so much worried about the follow up is because you do your converting on the phone, Is that kind of the idea? Because like I could sit here as a casual observer and say, well, what about if people do want to call you back, right? I mean, it's not like you're leaving
Yeah.
voicemails when you're doing these calls, right? You're just on to the next one.
That's right. Yeah. And so now like there's a couple different things you could do. This is something that I've been taking into my business recently. Like, so on average, I would say back in 2019, it's been different since the pandemic has started, but back in 2019, you're converting about 1%. And I would say that's probably, sadly enough, gone down a little bit. So for every 100 people that you call, one of them should be booking to an appointment. And because of the pandemic, not as many people want you coming over, right? And so converting has been a little bit trickier. And so what I've been personally doing to kind of change that up a bit is the listings that I do have, I've been doing circle prospecting, right? So I've been calling the areas around it, all the streets around it, to tell them that I have a new listing coming. When that listing sells, I've been calling them back and saying, I've sold that listing, and really getting leads in those areas that are then going into my pipeline that I can follow up with on a regular basis and hopefully eventually convert them all, right?
Yeah. Coming with a service, like coming with contribution that you're there to help and assist them. It's not just about, hey, do you want to buy or sell today, right?
Exactly. Like there's a couple different strategies you can go about, just cold calling, direct areas and just seeing who in that area might be looking to sell. And when I realized that that was kind of slowing down a little bit from what I was used to, I decided to implement other strategies as well so that it can kind of, it's still beneficial, right? So I'll cold call areas for my buyers, just saying like, hey, I have a buyer looking in the area. We missed out on a purchase last week and we're still interested. If you're interested in selling, this could be the best and easiest way for you to do so, right? You'd be surprised how many people will say yeah to that. Or we'll just say like, yeah, I know my neighbor, or we've been thinking about it. And then, if it works out, that your buyer buys it. If it doesn't, you now have a lead that you can follow up with in the future and potentially have a seller listing.
Exactly, that you could
right?
have in the future. Yeah, and I mean, when you're coming already with a buyer in mind, it helps alleviate some stress on their end to say, hey, you don't need to go on the market. I can get you market value today without you having to go on the market and have everybody coming through your home right now.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I did. So I had a client of mine, I sold his house in January, and that's pretty much what I did. We didn't even list it. I just said the market is so hot. I have a list of realtors that I can actually call that have potential buyers in this area. Let me call them. I'll try to bring somebody in. And we actually did. Somebody came in and they offered the price that we were looking for. And the deal closed. And it was incredible, right? Yeah. And we did that all throughout listing. Like didn't even have a for sale sign on his property, all exclusive.
Yeah. I think like no other time in our history has that strategy been better than right now to be able to do that. Because you're like, hey, these buyers are just so grateful to get to buy the house that they want that they have no problem paying you competitive prices to get it. And then you don't have to worry about going on the market because of COVID and everything like that. I've got you the guy ready to go.
That's exactly it. Yeah, you just lined up the deal, right? Which is even better. Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. So I've got a couple other questions here for you that I want to run through. First, how long have you been using it? I think you kind of mentioned it was around 2019 when you started.
Yeah. So I started in 2018. Started using Mojo Dialer 2018. So it's been, what is it now? 3 years now. Yeah, 3 years.
And what's the annual cost that you pay for Mojo?
So it's $129 per month. Now I use a triple line dialer, so that's 3 lines. If you do the 1 line, it's $99. That is in American dollars as well. So I pay that monthly. It's a monthly subscription, and the ability to just be able to call people without having to actually physically dial the numbers. Yeah, honest to God, is worth it in its own. Like that to me is just like, I love that feature. Not to mention cold calling for potential leads and growing your business through that, right?
Yeah. And again, like just using it for circle prospecting while we can't knock on doors is such an amazing opportunity to at least stick with that kind of skill and strategy like we have in the past.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and it's one of those things that you can implement into your business that's so easy to do and so easy to execute, right? And again, it's just a couple scripts. You pick a street, cold call that whole street, and you let them know about the property you just sold and take it from there. And if they're interested, you get their info and you just keep following up with them, right?
I love it. And what about, so now you've got 3 lines. What happens if 2 lines pick up at the same time? Two numbers pick up.
Yeah, great question. So if I'm on the phone with you and somebody else picks up even at the exact same time, whoever I'm connected with, I get to talk to. What happens is they get pretty much like a fake message. So mine's just blank. It just goes beep and the line disconnects. When I hang up the phone with you, it automatically calls them back And then the person's like, oh, hey, did you just call me? And you just kind of say, oh yeah,
Okay.
I just called you. I got disconnected. I apologize. I just decided to call you back.
Yeah. And so actually on that note, how many first, how do you handle tough interactions? And do you find that you have a lot of tough interactions in your daily calls?
Yeah, this is probably the number one question I get whenever I tell anybody about it. I would say when you're calling, you probably get one a day
Yeah.
that is just really nasty. But again, the way you got to look at it is, I don't know this person. They don't know me. There's nothing I can do to make their day. They're just having a shitty day, right? They're just having
Yeah.
a bad day. Nothing I can do to help them out. So you just don't take it to heart, right? Sometimes I hang up the phone. I get a good chuckle because they, verbally abuse me for like, 10 seconds or something, and you just move on with it, right? But if you just let that sit on you all day long and that negative, whatever they said to you, then it's just putting you in a bad mindset, and it's just going to ruin your day, right? But again, you don't know. Everybody has picked up a telemarketing call and has like lost it on the guy, right? It's just like, it seems like it's just, sometimes they call it the worst, the worst timing possible. And other times there's a lot of nice people out there as well. So I try to look at it as, if I get one a day, that's not horrible. If it's more than one a day, I should probably go and treat myself to ice cream that night, or maybe like a Starbucks drink, and just call it a day. But yeah, again, you just can't let it get to you. Don't let it bug you, whatever.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going on in their world that has made them say what they
100%.
said. The word, like, I haven't gotten too many bad thing. I mean, now that I'm thinking about them, I have, but it's like, it doesn't seem bad to me because of the way they say it. But like,
Yeah.
I've gotten like threats and, I'm going to find you, beat you up. Like, okay, whatever, buddy. Like, if that's
Yeah.
what your life comes to, it's at the end of the day, whatever, who cares? Like, it's not going to happen. Right.
No, it's not going to happen. And like you said, like it's about your mindset and how you can control it. You can't control what's going on in their life that they would respond to a stranger that way. Like that has nothing to
Yeah.
do with you. You're here for your business and for the outcome, the betterment of your life. And so the way I've always approached those things as well is just apologize, sorry for taking up your time, and move on.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
click.
Also, to be honest, it's kind of like good recon, right? Because now you find the homes that you don't want to work for,
Yeah.
right? So you see all the houses, and now you can just avoid them at all costs, right? Because you just don't, nobody should have to work for somebody like that, right?
No, exactly. And so, on that note, this is maybe more of a telelisting conversation, but with
Yeah.
those phone numbers, do you get names and addresses as well?
Yeah, that's right. So when you download it off of telelistings, you get the name of the person that, whatever they registered on that address. So when they set up their Rogers or Bell account,
Mhm.
whatever name they put it in, you get that name. So if they put their first and last name, you get both. Most cases, it's just their last name, but you do get their phone numbers and you get their addresses as well. Yeah.
Okay. And so let's circle back to the circle prospecting for a second there. Can you pick a specific geographic area when you're deciding who to call? So say you've bought this database of Newmarket, Aurora, whatever. Now I
Yeah.
just want to call Glenway. How do I go about doing that?
Right. Yeah. So what you could do, so the way that I organize mine, so I bought all of Newmarket, right? So Newmarket has different communities. I broke it up into each community so that I have, let's say, 5 lists now. Of those lists, they are like Woodland Hills, Bristol, London, and I can call that whole area. Now, let's say I wanted to call a specific street in that area. I can click that list, click like, there's an advanced button, click on that, and then you can search by the street address. So I can search the street and I get all the numbers on the street, and I can now call those people. Now, let's say I'm circle prospecting and I want to call like 4 or 5 different streets.
Hmm.
So I'm just going to type in the street that I want, and I'm going to add it to a sub list. And that sub list is maybe circle prospecting for 123 Main Street.
Yep.
I'm going to put all the streets on that one, and then I can cold call that whole list, right? And then all those people in there will get to hear from me, and hopefully I can find another seller listing from that.
Yeah. And so is there a follow-up system built into Mojo as well?
There is, and there isn't. So the follow-up system allows you to make follow-up calls or set different tasks or set an appointment.
Hmm.
And allows you to pre-qualify the appointments, and it allows you to write down notes for the calls. That's pretty much it. So if you don't manually click follow-up and add them to your calendar, you will not be following up with them until you call that list again. So it's very important that you're very active with the people you talk to, and you set a follow-up date with them on
Yeah.
the Mojo Dialer. And then when you log in, you'll see on your calendar, it'll say like, today's date, and then they'll have a list of like 8 people to call, right? You just pick the people and you give them a call.
Perfect. So yeah, while I'm making my phone calls, I'll have Mojo open. If I get a great conversation going, I can just click on that number, save it for a follow-up, add my notes, whatever I need to do right in the system.
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay,
that's exactly it. Yeah.
perfect. And then from there, when do you decide that you put them into command?
So from that point on, I usually like to put them into like my other database. So obviously we use command. Pretty much if I've booked an appointment with them or I've like gone out and shown them a house to purchase,
Mhm.
because now they're more mainstream and they're like a legit potential, seller or buyer listing.
Yep.
So at that point, I'll put them into command and have a different follow-up system take it from there and just really communicate with them. I never take them out of Mojo in the sense I'm always there. If I call them once a month and they're becoming more serious, I'll start calling them once a week. Right.
Gotcha.
And so I just constantly have them on that while additionally having them on some other systems.
Perfect. And so when you're making these calls, have you noticed different results at different times of day, or are you just set in when you do your lead generation?
Yeah. So the best times for like the straight cold calling, even the the circle prospect calls is definitely from 9 till 12. That seems to be the most active periods. There's another little like time that's in the afternoon. I would say from like 3 till 7. Now,
Hmm.
obviously, that's a long time, but between those times are the best. From pretty much 12 till 3, it's kind of quiet. People are like at lunch, they're enjoying, they're really getting off their phones for a little bit. Maybe they're
Yeah.
trying to, figure out the last minute work things that they're working on. But definitely like dinner time is always a good time. I don't always recommend it because it means you're staying late and you're cold calling and you're getting people when they're eating, and that can always be you'll see an increase of negative responses at those times.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you're looking for as many contacts as possible, that's a great opportunity for you to connect with a lot of people fast, right? Is during that time. Morning time seems to be the best, just because people are home. Hopefully they're having a good morning. They're happy. They're excited to talk to you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just looking up at the clock. We've gone a little bit longer than we intended to. So we're at the 17-minute mark. So I'm going to say that's all the time that we have for today. Like
Yeah,
we said
love
originally,
that.
Mike, we're going to try and keep these videos short, right?
Yes, 100%. And you know what? Next week we'll connect again and we'll share some more thoughts on a different program. And if anybody wants us to review a program, send it our way and we'll certainly, do a deep dive into that.
Yeah. So until next time, I'm Dylan. That's Mike, and we'll see you soon.